Okay, thank you so much, my dudes. You all showed a ridiculous amount of support on the video where we went through, talked about some rookie wide receiver expectations. So yeah, let's do the same thing here with the running back position. And I will say, running backs in fantasy, especially their first year, I mean, that is going to change their value so much more than what you're having with these wide receivers. I mean, you see this every single season, where if a running back prospect hits, I mean, if you have someone that can be a running back one their first year, I mean, all of a sudden that player is a lock to be a round one startup pick a year later. I mean, think about right now what you have with Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, all skyrocketing in value. The only guy that didn't, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But all those players, I mean, skyrocketed in value. And really the only guy that was a running back one last year was Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor, some people are trying to argue him as the #1 running back overall in Dynasty. Well, I have him at running back 3. But regardless, the point remains, if you can hit one of these running backs that is going to produce you a top 12 season their rookie year, I mean, that's someone that becomes untouchable in Dynasty. Because I say time and time again that there is nothing more valuable in Dynasty than a 3-down running back on their rookie contract so you can get that guaranteed role over the next 4 years. So it's going to be very important to understand what the production actually looks like for these players this upcoming season. But yeah, that should be it for the intro. Please, guys, go down there, drop that like, leave a comment. And I believe by the time this video comes out, maybe we're over 6,000 subscribers. If not, I'm sure we are going to be right there in a couple days. So thank you so much for everybody subscribing to the channel. And yeah, that should be it. Let's bring up Najee Harris. Okay, so if you pull up our Dynasty rankings over there on Patreon, I understand something that stands out to a lot of y'all, especially because I didn't even really love him as a prospect, is going to be how aggressive we are ranking Najee Harris in our Dynasty startups. So right now, I actually have Najee Harris ranked as the running back 5 in Dynasty. And I know that sounds crazy. Trust me, I understand that. But what we have to understand is with Najee Harris, this is a running back that is currently being drafted at the back half of the first round in high-stakes redraft leagues. Now, I know that if I was in a redraft league, I would not necessarily draft Najee Harris there. Like I said in that video where we talked about rookie wide receiver expectations for year 1, we are not agreeing with this ADP at all. That's not the purpose of this exercise. The purpose of this exercise is going, okay, well, a lot of people devoted to fantasy football, a lot of people that are very smart in this game, because I think you have to have a minimum threshold of your fantasy football knowledge if you're going to be willing to spend $2,000 to get in a fantasy league. Well, they think Najee Harris is worth being the 11th overall selection in a redraft league this upcoming year based on the volume that he will have. And with Najee Harris, y'all understand that I was never making the argument that this player wasn't someone that couldn't see 300 touches in a season. I mean, that was never the argument against Najee Harris. My argument was I'm a little bit worried that this is a player that doesn't have that top end speed. He'll never be a Derrick Henry. He'll never be a Saquon Barkley. He'll never be a top 3 running back in fantasy. What I said is he looks like a slightly better version of David Montgomery. And I stand by that. I mean, I think that's actually a very fair assessment of a running back that can do everything. A running back that can run the ball, make defenders miss, run defenders over, and most importantly, catch the ball out of the backfield. While the difference between Najee Harris and David Montgomery for fantasy purposes is Najee Harris is going to be getting every single target out of his backfield compared to when David Montgomery was getting like 1 to 2 targets a game. This is before the Tariq Cohen injury. And then remember, Tariq Cohen goes down. All of a sudden, I mean, you have David Montgomery as a top 6 running back in fantasy based off volume alone. So, well, I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes at that comparison and hate it. I mean, Najee Harris can be a better version of David Montgomery and can be a top 5 running back in fantasy. And a lot of people are thinking that, drafting him at the back half of round 1. And what's important here is going, okay, well, let's say Najee Harris is a top 10 running back in fantasy. Now, I understand, and trust me, I think it's a red flag that Najee Harris is already incredibly old. I mean, he is someone that's essentially the same age as a Josh Jacobs, which, I mean, that's disgusting to hear about. Cam Akers is an entire year younger than Najee Harris. But something we talk about all the time is at the running back position, while age is important, while we can bring that up when we're talking about Joe Mixon, kind of liking him a little bit more than some of those other running backs drafted then because he was younger. What matters a lot more is actually the contract situation that they are in, because the contract situation they are in kind of guarantees them the roles that we want for fantasy purposes. And with Najee Harris, given the fact that he was drafted in the first round this past year, I mean, you are going to have him locked in to 4 years as the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers at a minimum. And then he also has that 5th-year option, and we can assume what's probably going to happen by the time he gets to that point. Probably sign an extension. It will be front-loaded for 1 to 2 seasons, and then he'll probably get cut after that. But regardless, you're looking at Najee Harris, overlooking the age slightly, going, well, all I need is 5 running back 1 seasons, and this is someone that's worth a top 5 startup pick overall. So I know it's aggressive, but right now, redraft players are drafting him ahead of Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift. So I don't think it's that aggressive to have him ranked as the running back 5 in Dynasty, because if he does hit his redraft mark, this is someone that's going to be a consensus top 5 running back next offseason. So might as well get that production now and also get that value next year. Okay, but now let's go to my guy. Let's go to someone that I have on a lot of rosters, because I have Najee Harris on very few rosters. Let's talk about Travis Etienne, maybe my most owned running back from this year's past rookie drafts. Now, with Travis Etienne, he is going a lot later in drafts right now. I mean, he is going at 45 overall as the running back 22 in leagues. He's going in a range where it's David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, and then there is a big gap. And then you have about a 6 to 10 pick range where you're only seeing quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends go before you have another running back going off the board. And then it's Javonte Williams and Kareem Hunt. But I think if you just look at the overall running back rankings in terms of this ADP, it's going to be a little bit skewed if you look at overall. I mean, you are essentially having Travis Etienne in line with David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, and Josh Jacobs. Now, what is crazy to see is I've talked to some people over there on Patreon, and of course, y'all know I make those podcasts every single day trying to give people advice on what trades they should be making, how they should be constructing their roster given their league format. And a big thing that I always say, because I have no idea how this gets done in your leagues, but I am always advising people, if they have a David Montgomery, if they have a Miles Sanders, if they have a Chris Carson, if they have a Josh Jacobs, hell, just try to trade them straight up for Travis Etienne. Because with Travis Etienne, if you can do that, and high-stakes redraft players think that they are going to have a similar amount of value this upcoming season with their production, then all of a sudden, we know what that will do for Travis Etienne's dynasty value if he can come through and be a mid-running back too. Just imagine what happens to Travis Etienne in dynasty if all of a sudden he comes out and right away he's more productive than Josh Jacobs. This is a running back that's going to jump up 1 to 2 rounds. You're going to get the same amount of production. And if you trade Josh Jacobs for Travis Etienne right now, just say you make that trade, right? And then we see both Travis Etienne and Josh Jacobs have a similar amount of production. I mean, they are both valued right here, right now in Dynasty. And if they both produce the same level this upcoming season, you can naturally assume that you're going to have Travis Etienne going this way and Josh Jacobs going this way. So you're going to get the same amount of production, and you're going to have a lot more value next offseason to play with, make trades, and construct your roster. So I think it's a very easy move right now to trade Travis Etienne, because a lot of dynasty players, for whatever reason, are nervous. Now, I will say, based on the studies that we have done with what makes a running back 1 in fantasy, I think Travis Etienne definitely has the traits to be successful. And we talk about this all the time. Travis Etienne can be that Alvin Kamara, that Aaron Jones, that DeAndre Swift, a running back that's not getting every touch in his backfield, but he's getting all the valuable ones. He's getting the touches in the red zone, and he's getting the targets out of the backfield, which we know that's really all you have to worry about. I don't care if James Robinson turns into Jamal Williams, because he can still be very useful for the Jacksonville Jaguars in that right. But if James Robinson's getting 10 carries a game between the 20-yard lines, and he's turning those 10 carries into 48 yards, he's stealing 4.5 fantasy points from Travis Etienne and letting Travis Etienne be fresh when it matters. That's something you want to see. I mean, we have seen Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara be top 3 running backs time and time again. Doesn't matter how many touches you're getting from Latavius Murray. Doesn't matter how many touches you're getting from Jamal Williams. Now, I will say there is a concern. There is a way that Travis Etienne does, quote unquote, bust in fantasy. And that is if James Robinson has a role within the 5-yard line. If they get within the 5-yard line and they are using James Robinson over Travis Etienne, then yes, it is not going to be pretty. I'll probably be pulling my hair out, and it's going to be a bad season for us. But if you do have Travis Etienne with that role within the 5-yard line, Travis Etienne can be a top 15 startup pick this next season. Okay, so now let's go to the running back that's going after Travis Etienne in drafts right now. Let's go over to Javonte Williams. So like we said, Javonte Williams, yes, he is the running back 23, right below Travis Etienne, but don't think that they are going back and back in drafts. I mean, there's pretty much a round difference between them in ADP. For whatever reason, that round is just made up of quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. But regardless, Javonte Williams has actually increased a lot given what reports we are getting out of Denver. I mean, we are getting out of Denver where this is going to be Javonte Williams' backfield way before most people are thinking. And because of that, I mean, this is a running back that was being drafted around the running back 27 mark about a month ago, and all of a sudden he's jumped up over Myles Gaskin, James Robinson sinking like a rock, which he should have been. I've been screaming to sell him for I don't know how long now, both in redraft and in Dynasty. And also he jumps Kareem Hunt as well. And with Javonte Williams, I'm a little bit hesitant to buy in at this price. I will say what you love to see is that Melvin Gordon's not going to be on the team next offseason given his contract. And here with Javonte Williams, if he does come out and he's a low-end running back too, that's going to guarantee you a rise in dynasty value. I mean, Javonte Williams, another one of those running backs that I would prefer over Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery. I mean, give me Javonte Williams over all of those, understanding if we can get similar production this upcoming season and then have way more value next offseason. I mean, that is a good bet 10 times out of 10. But here with Javonte, the problem for this upcoming season is I'm just so worried about Denver, where if you told me that they're going to be trading for Aaron Rodgers guaranteed 2 weeks from now, I mean, Javonte Williams, he's going to be jumping up over Travis Etienne for me. He's going to be jumping up to being a top, I don't want to say 10 running back in fantasy because that is going to be very, very aggressive. But in dynasty leagues, maybe a low-end running back 1. I mean, he would just skyrocket. I'm a little bit worried, however, that this offense is going to be so bad where it doesn't allow Javonte Williams to have that type of production. But regardless, I think there's a lot of room to go through and purchase him here because, I mean, like we already said, in Dynasty, you can probably trade Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders for Javonte Williams. No problem. And high-stakes redraft players right now don't see a massive difference between the two. Okay, so now let's go to another running back that has been moving up rankings. Let's go to Trey Sermon. Okay, so with Trey Sermon, someone that was going in the mid-30s at the running back position about a month ago in those high-stakes redraft leagues, now he jumps up to running back 29. This is due to Raheem Mostert dealing with a minor injury, which, of course, Raheem Mostert's always dealing with something. And this is also due to beat reports coming out saying that Trey Sermon looks like the dude there, which should have been expected. This is what we talk about in Dynasty over and over and over and over again, is ignore what your favorite fantasy analyst is telling you, ignore what the beat reporters are telling you, and chase what the team is telling you. And what the team told us is, instead of going, hey, Raheem Mostert's our guy, which, yeah, they can say in a press conference, they go out and they trade up multiple picks by giving up multiple picks to get Trey Sermon on their team, indicating that they do want Trey Sermon as their starting running back. And if you go and look at where he's being drafted right now, he's being drafted right behind James Robinson, Mike Davis, Chase Edmonds, and right ahead of Michael Carter, Melvin Gordon, and Ronald Jones. So we're going to just say the same thing that we said with these past two running backs. If high-stakes redraft players are expecting James Robinson, Mike Davis, Chase Edmonds to be in about the same ballpark of a Trey Sermon, there's no reason why Trey Sermon shouldn't be more valuable than those guys in Dynasty. Now, of course, he is over there in our overall Dynasty rankings, but, I mean, if you can make a swap from any of those running backs over to Trey Sermon, do that right away. Now, another running back we're going to be looking at is Michael Carter. And Michael Carter going right behind Trey Sermon, which is a little bit surprising here for me. Y'all know I've been on the train of saying avoid Michael Carter. And maybe I'm being a little bit stubborn here. Please let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Maybe I'm just having take lock, not willing to admit that I'm wrong. But with Michael Carter, I think that he can be productive this upcoming season, but something that we always talk about when we reference team investment is not only does it really impact the historical hit rates that you have from these players, but also understanding that Michael Carter was someone drafted in the 4th round, very similar to James Robinson last year, James Robinson being undrafted. I mean, a 4th round investment in the NFL draft and an undrafted player as a rookie running back more in particular, I mean, that's essentially the same amount of investment from an NFL team. So we could live in a world where Michael Carter came out, and even if he proved that he was worth this pick in fantasy this year, I mean, we could be in an offseason next year where all of a sudden New York's going, okay, we don't love Michael Carter as our starting running back. Let's go out there and let's try to get an upgrade at the position. Maybe we go and draft a much bigger bodied running back and just have them split the backfield where there's no value here. Very similar to someone I told you to avoid in 2019, Devin Singletary. I mean, Devin Singletary had a decent rookie season for Devin Singletary standards. And what did Buffalo do? They went, okay, well, we just drafted this running back in the late third. He doesn't exactly do everything we want, so let's just go get Zach Moss in the third just to be sure. And then all of a sudden, neither running back has any value in Dynasty or in redraft. So I'd be a little bit worried with Michael Carter, way more worried than we would be with Trey Sermon, than we would be with someone like Travis Etienne or even Javonte Williams, because those other running backs have team investment where Michael Carter does not. Now, other running backs that are going very late here that we will bring up just slightly, going to be, I don't even want to say this name, Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell, for whatever reason, is going as the running back 50 right now in redraft leagues. I mean, he is going just ahead of Philip Lindsay, Rashad Penny, Tariq Cohen. I don't understand this at all. I mean, with Kenneth Gainwell, he's a pass-catching running back that went to a team with a rush-first quarterback, so we know those mobile quarterbacks are never going to be looking to check the ball down. He's also a handcuff running back at best, so all of a sudden you have someone that doesn't profile to play all 3 downs. Best case scenario, he turned into James White, and at the same time, I mean, he's playing on a team where James White would have absolutely no value at all. Kenneth Gainwell, I don't love him in Dynasty, don't love him in redraft, don't understand this in the slightest. Now, Chuba Hubbard going at 54, going right behind Philip Lindsay, Rashad Penny, and Tariq Cohen. Chuba Hubbard, I stand by the fact that I think he's a fantastic investment. I mean, what would you think his draft price is if CMC got hurt tomorrow? I think that most people would be projecting Chuba Hubbard to be a top 24 running back in fantasy, given the fact that there's nobody else on that depth chart. And we've seen Chuba Hubbard back in 2019 be one of the best running backs in all of college football. So Chuba Hubbard, really liked that draft pick at 54. Now, Rhamondre Stevenson, also a draft pick that I think was a massive value in the majority of Dynasty drafts here. I mean, he's going as the running back 57. And what you really love with Stevenson is this team has not shown that they like Damian Harris at all. They've not shown that they like Sony Michel. They haven't shown anything of the sorts. They have never given any of those running backs a 3-down workload. They go draft Stevenson in the 4th round. And I think that all of those running backs are on level playing fields. I think that anybody drafting Damian Harris, assuming that he is the locked-in starter, I mean, that's a horrible draft pick. I would much prefer having Stevenson at a free price compared to what Damian Harris cost. Now, thank you, my dudes. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. And of course, go down there, drop that like, leave that comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow. I want to give a big thank you for everyone joining the flock over there on Patreon. In Castro, Brian, Mike, Jay, Samuel, Billy, Rocky, Bailey, Zachary, and Andrew. Thank you, my dudes.